My daughter-in-law dumped me at a nursing home and stole my house keys. I sat on the stairs, holding my only pillow. When I saw a shivering veteran, I gave him my scarf. 2 hours later, 10 police cars surrounded the nursing home. The veteran stepped out in uniform and pointed straight at me. What he did next, I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. My name is Marcia, and I'm 71 years old. 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a family. Today, I'm sitting on concrete steps outside Sunset Manor Nursing Home, clutching the only pillow I was allowed to bring, watching my daughter-in-law drive away in my own car. The February wind cuts through my thin sweater like ice. I should be inside where it's warm, but the smell in there makes my stomach turn. Cheap disinfectant mixed with something sour that I don't want to identify. The fluorescent lights buzz constantly, giving everything a sickly yellow tint that makes everyone look like they're already dead. Mrs. Henderson, you need to come inside now. The aide's voice is impatient. She's maybe 25, with tired eyes and the kind of forced smile that doesn't reach past her lips. Her name tag says Jessica, but she's introduced herself to me 4 times already, each time like we've never met. Just a few more minutes, I tell her, my voice barely above a whisper. She sighs and checks her watch. Fine, but dinner's at 5:30, and if you miss it, the kitchen closes. I nod, though I have no appetite. How could I eat when my whole world just crumbled in the span of 2 hours? It started this morning when Brielle came to see me at home. My home. The house where I raised Peter, where I plan to live out my remaining years surrounded by memories of my late husband Robert and the life we built together. Brielle had this look on her face that I'd seen before, the same expression she wore when she convinced Peter to skip Christmas at my house last year, because they had other plans. Marcia, we need to talk, she said, not even accepting the cup of coffee I offered. She was dressed in her usual expensive clothes, a designer coat that probably cost more than my monthly pension of $1,200, and those boots that click against the hardwood floors like a countdown timer. Is it about Peter? How is he? My son had been in a coma for 3 weeks after a car accident. The doctor said his brain swelling was going down, that there were good signs, but Brielle had been controlling who could visit. I'd only seen him twice. That's what I want to discuss. She sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I used to help Peter with his homework, where we celebrated his high school graduation, where Robert and I shared our last breakfast together before the cancer took him. The doctors think Peter's recovery is going to take a long time. Months, maybe longer. My heart clenched. But he's getting better, right? You said yesterday that he moved his fingers. Brielle's expression didn't change, cold, clinical. Marcia, you're 71 years old. You can't take care of yourself anymore, let alone help with Peter's recovery when he wakes up. What are you talking about? I take care of myself just fine. I cook, I clean, I drive. You burned dinner last Tuesday. You forgot to pay the electric bill. Yesterday you called me 3 times asking the same question. Her voice was patient in the way you talk to a child having a tantrum. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. I was worried about my son. Of course I called. And I didn't burn dinner. I just let it cook a little longer than usual. The smoke detector went off, Marcia. Mrs. Patterson next door had to come check on you. That was true, but it wasn't because I was losing my mind. It was because I was distracted, terrified that I might lose the only family I had left. But trying to explain that to Brielle was like trying to explain color to someone who'd been blind their whole life. I've made arrangements, she continued, pulling out a folder from her purse. Sunset Manor has an opening. It's a nice place, very clean, with activities and medical staff available around the clock. The words hit me like a physical blow. You want to put me in a nursing home? It's what's best for everyone. You'll have people to take care of you, and I can focus on Peter's recovery without worrying about you. But this is my house. Peter grew up here. This is where I belong. Brielle's mask slipped for just a moment, and I saw something ugly underneath. Impatience. Annoyance. Like I was an inconvenient problem she needed to solve. Peter signed the papers before his accident. He was already concerned about you living alone. That's not true. Peter would never. Here's his signature. She slid a document across the table. There it was, in my son's handwriting. Peter Henderson. But something about it looked wrong. Rushed. Not like Peter's usual careful penmanship. I don't understand. Why didn't he talk to me about this? Because he knew you'd react exactly like this. Look, Marcia, this doesn't have to be permanent. Once Peter's better and we get settled, maybe we can look at other arrangements. The hope in those words was worse than outright cruelty. She was giving me just enough to make me cooperate, a carrot dangled in front of a donkey. 2 hours later, I was in Brielle's car with a single suitcase and my pillow. She'd packed for me while I sat in shock at the kitchen table, choosing what she thought I'd need. She left behind my photo albums, my recipe books, the quilt my mother made for my wedding. They don't have room for all this, she said when I protested. We'll bring more later. But I knew there wouldn't be a later. Not the way she meant it. The ride to Sunset Manor was silent, except for the radio playing some generic pop song about love and happiness. Brielle drummed her fingers on the steering wheel, checking her watch every few minutes like she had somewhere more important to be. When we pulled up to the building, my heart sank. It wasn't the nice place she'd described. The paint was peeling, the parking lot was full of potholes, and the sign out front was missing half its letters. The smell hit me the moment she opened the car door. That institutional smell that clings to your clothes and follows you home. Here we are, Brielle said with false cheer. Your new home. The check-in process was a blur of paperwork and condescending smiles. The administrator, a thin woman with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, spoke about me like I wasn't standing right there. Mrs. Henderson has mild cognitive decline, Brielle explained. Though I'd never been diagnosed with anything of the sort. She gets confused easily and can't live independently anymore. I wanted to scream, to tell them she was lying, but the words stuck in my throat. Who would believe me over Brielle, with her expensive clothes and confident voice? My room was on the second floor, barely larger than a closet. It had a narrow bed, a small dresser, and one window that looked out onto the parking lot. The previous occupant had left behind a water stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of some foreign country I'd never visit. I'll come check on you soon, Brielle said, though we both knew it was a lie. She handed me my house keys, and for a moment, I thought she was giving them back to me. Instead, she plucked them from my palm. I'll need these to take care of the house while you're here. And then she was gone, leaving me alone in a place that smelled like sadness and forgotten dreams. That's how I ended up on these steps, watching the sun set over a parking lot full of rusty cars and broken promises. The temperature is dropping, and I should go inside, but I can't bring myself to move. This morning I was Marcia Henderson, homeowner, mother, woman with a life and a history. Now I'm just another old lady warehoused away when I became inconvenient. A movement across the parking lot catches my eye. There's a man sitting on a bus bench, wearing an old military jacket and boots that have seen better days. He looks like he's been there for hours, just watching the building. Our eyes meet for a moment, and something passes between us. Recognition, maybe, or just the shared understanding of what it feels like to be forgotten. The wind picks up again, and I see him shiver. Without thinking, I unwrap the blue scarf from around my neck, the one Robert gave me for our 40th wedding anniversary, and walk over to him. You look cold, I say, holding out the scarf. He looks up at me with eyes that have seen too much, eyes that remind me of Peter when he was little and trying not to cry. Ma'am, I can't take that. It's yours. I insist. We all need a little warmth sometimes. He takes the scarf with hands that shake slightly, either from cold or something deeper. Thank you, ma'am. That's very kind of you. You're welcome. I start to walk back to the building, then pause. Are you waiting for someone? He wraps my scarf around his neck, and for the first time, I see him smile. It transforms his whole face, makes him look younger somehow. Yes, ma'am. I think I am. There's something about the way he says it that makes me look back one more time as I climb the steps. He's still watching me, and there's an intensity in his gaze that I can't quite understand, like he knows something I don't. As I reach for the door handle, I hear footsteps behind me. The veteran is standing at the bottom of the steps now, his hands in his pockets, my scarf a bright splash of color against his weathered jacket. "Mrs. Henderson," he calls out, and my blood turns cold. I never told him my name. I freeze on the steps, my hand gripping the cold metal railing so tightly my knuckles go white. The veteran knows my name. I never introduced myself, never mentioned it during our brief conversation. Yet he called me Mrs. Henderson like we were old friends. "How do you—" I start to ask, but he's already walking away, disappearing into the shadows between the streetlights. I stand there for several minutes, my heart hammering against my ribs, before Jessica the aide opens the door behind me. "There you are." I was starting to worry. Her tone suggests she wasn't worried at all. "Come on, let's get you settled in for the night." I follow her inside, but I keep glancing back toward the parking lot. The bus bench is empty now, as if the whole encounter was just a figment of my imagination. But the absence of my scarf around my neck tells me it was real. That first night at Sunset Manor passes in a haze of unfamiliar sounds and smells. The walls are thin, so I hear everything. Mrs. Chen in the next room crying for her daughter who never comes, the night aide's heavy footsteps in the hallway, the constant buzz of fluorescent lights that never fully turn off. I lie on the narrow bed that smells like industrial detergent, staring at the water stain on the ceiling, and wonder how my life became this small. The next morning brings no relief. Breakfast is served at 7 sharp in a dining room that echoes with the sounds of wheelchairs and walkers scraping against linoleum. The eggs are powdered, the coffee tastes like it was made yesterday, and the woman across from me keeps trying to feed her scrambled eggs to a stuffed animal she calls Harold. "You're the new one," says the woman to my left. Her name tag reads Resident Dorothy, and her white hair is perfectly styled despite the early hour. "What did you do wrong?" "Excuse me? What did you do to end up here?" Nobody comes to Sunset Manor because they want to. There's always a story. Dorothy takes a sip of orange juice and makes a face. "Powdered like everything else here. I'm here because my grandson decided my house was worth more than my happiness. You?" I consider lying, making up some story about choosing this place, but Dorothy's directness cuts through my defenses. "My daughter-in-law thinks I can't take care of myself anymore. And can you?" "I've been taking care of myself for 71 years. Dorothy nods approvingly. "That's what I like to hear. Most people here have given up fighting. Me? I call my grandson every day and remind him exactly what kind of man he's become. I wish I had Dorothy's courage. Instead, I poke at my eggs and try not to think about my real kitchen, where I used to make fresh coffee and read the newspaper at the table by the window. The day stretches endlessly. There's craft time, where we're given safety scissors and construction paper like kindergartners. There's exercise hour, which consists of sitting in chairs and moving our arms in slow circles. There's socialization time, where a cheerful volunteer reads to us from a romance novel with a shirtless man on the cover. Through it all, I find myself looking out the windows, searching for any sign of the veteran from yesterday. But the bus bench remains empty. It's not until Thursday that Brielle comes to visit. I hear her heels clicking down the hallway before I see her, that distinctive sharp sound that always reminded me of a countdown timer. When she appears in my doorway, she's carrying a small bouquet of flowers from the grocery store, the kind that costs $5 and comes in plastic wrap. "Hi, Marcia. How are you settling in?" She sets the flowers on my dresser without looking for a vase. There isn't one. "I want to go home," I tell her, not bothering with pleasantries. "Now, Marcia, you've only been here a few days. Give it a chance. She sits on the edge of my bed, careful not to wrinkle her skirt. I brought you some of your things. She hands me a small bag containing 3 photos, one of Peter as a baby, one of Robert and me on our wedding day, and one of the 3 of us at Peter's college graduation. Missing are the dozens of other photos that chronicle our lives together, the ones that tell the real story of who we were. Where are the rest of my pictures, my photo albums? Marcia, you don't need all that clutter. These are the important ones. She glances around the room with barely concealed distaste. Besides, there's no room for everything here. What about my things at the house? My furniture? I'm taking care of everything. Don't worry about it. Her voice has that edge to it that I've learned to recognize. The conversation is over. Can I see Peter? Is he awake yet? Something flickers across Brielle's face. Guilt, maybe, or annoyance. He's still unconscious, but the doctors are hopeful. When he wakes up, he's going to need all my attention to recover. That's why it's good that you're here, being taken care of. She stays for exactly 15 minutes, checking her phone twice and looking at her watch once. Before she leaves, she delivers the blow that cuts deepest. Oh, I almost forgot. I had to sell some of your furniture to help with expenses. The medical bills are piling up and Peter's insurance doesn't cover everything. She says it casually, like she's discussing the weather. I got $15,000 for the dining room set and your bedroom furniture. That old stuff was worth more than I thought. My throat goes dry. You sold my furniture? The dining room set Robert and I bought for our first anniversary? Marcia, it's just stuff. Peter's medical care is more important than old furniture. She stands up, smoothing her skirt. I have to go. I'm meeting with Peter's doctors this afternoon. After she leaves, I sit on my narrow bed and stare at the 3 photos she brought me. The dining room set she sold was where we ate every family meal for 45 years. The bedroom furniture was where Robert and I spent our last nights together before cancer took him. To Brielle, they were just old stuff to be converted into cash. That afternoon, during outdoor time, a supervised 20 minutes in a small courtyard surrounded by chain-link fence, I see him again. The veteran is sitting on the same bus bench, wearing my blue scarf despite the warmer weather. This time, he's not alone. A woman in a business suit is talking to him, showing him something on a clipboard. Who is that man? I ask Jessica, who's standing nearby scrolling through her phone. She barely glances up. What man? The one on the bus bench, with the scarf. Jessica looks toward the parking lot and frowns. I don't see anyone. But he's right there, clear as day. The woman in the suit shakes his hand and walks away, and he turns to look directly at me. Even from this distance, I can see him nod slightly, like he's acknowledging something I don't understand. That night, I can't sleep. The encounter with Brielle keeps playing in my mind, along with her casual mention of selling my furniture. $15,000, money that should have gone to help with my care, not disappeared into whatever financial black hole Brielle seems to be throwing it into. I get up and walk to the small window that looks out over the parking lot. It's past midnight, but there he is again. The veteran, sitting on the bench under the streetlight, wearing my scarf. He's not moving, just sitting there like he's keeping watch. Without really thinking about it, I put on my robe and slippers and make my way downstairs. The night aide is dozing at the front desk, and the doors aren't locked. Apparently, they don't expect residents to try to escape in the middle of the night. The cool air hits my face as I step outside, and I realize how long it's been since I've felt truly fresh air. Not the recycled, disinfectant-scented air of Sunset Manor, but real air that carries the smell of grass and distant rain. The veteran looks up as I approach, as if he's been expecting me. Couldn't sleep either? He asks, his voice gentle in the darkness. Too many thoughts, I admit, sitting down on the other end of the bench. Up close, I can see that my scarf is carefully folded and clean, like he's been taking care of it. You don't have to keep that, you know, the scarf. I'd like to hold on to it a little longer if you don't mind. It reminds me of something. What? He's quiet for a long moment, studying my face in the streetlight. Kindness. Real kindness is rarer than people think. We sit in comfortable silence, two forgotten people in the middle of the night. Finally, he speaks again. Your son is lucky to have you. My breath catches. How do you know about my son? People talk. Word gets around. He adjusts the scarf around his neck. Peter, right? The car accident? I nod, unable to speak around the sudden tightness in my throat. He's going to be okay, the veteran says with quiet confidence. And when he wakes up, he's going to have questions about where you are. His wife says he signed papers to put me here. The veteran's expression hardens slightly. Did he, though? Before I can ask what he means, the sound of footsteps approaches from behind us. It's the night aide, looking annoyed and sleepy. Mrs. Henderson, you can't be out here in your pajamas. Come back inside before you catch pneumonia. I stand up reluctantly, but the veteran catches my arm gently. Everything's going to change soon, he says quietly, so only I can hear. Trust me. As I'm led back inside, I turn to look at him one more time. He's still sitting there under the streetlight, my blue scarf bright against the darkness, watching Sunset Manor like a sentinel. I don't know who he is or how he knows about my family, but something about his presence makes me feel less alone. For the first time since Brielle abandoned me here, I have the strange sensation that someone is looking out for me. I just have no idea how much that's going to matter in the days to come. Friday morning changes everything. I'm in the dining room picking at another breakfast of powdered eggs when Jessica approaches my table, her usual bored expression replaced by something that looks almost like excitement. Mrs. Henderson, you have a visitor. He's waiting in the family meeting room. My heart leaps. Peter? Is Peter awake? No, ma'am, it's someone else. He says he's a friend of the family. I follow Jessica down a hallway I've never seen before, past offices with closed doors, and the administrator's room where I can hear her arguing with someone on the phone about unpaid invoices. The family meeting room is small and windowless, with institutional gray walls and chairs that look like they came from a church basement sale. The man waiting for me isn't the veteran from the bus bench. This is someone else entirely. Tall, clean-shaven, wearing a crisp white shirt and dark slacks. He has silver hair and kind eyes, and when he stands to greet me, there's something authoritative about his posture that commands respect. Mrs. Henderson, thank you for seeing me. My name is James Morrison. He extends his hand, and his grip is firm and warm. I apologize for the unusual circumstances, but I needed to speak with you privately. I don't understand. How do you know me? Are you from the hospital? Is this about Peter? Please, sit down. He waits until I'm seated before taking the chair across from me. Mrs. Henderson, I need to be completely honest with you about why I'm here. I'm a retired military investigator, and for the past month, I've been conducting an informal investigation into this facility. My brain struggles to process his words. Investigation? What kind of investigation? Sunset Manor has been the subject of several complaints filed with the state health department. Allegations of neglect, financial exploitation of residents, falsified medical records. I was asked to look into these claims by some concerned family members whose loved ones had difficulties here. The room suddenly feels smaller, the walls pressing in. Are you saying this place is... Let's just say it's not operating according to the standards it should be. Morrison's voice is gentle but serious. Mrs. Henderson, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Did you choose to come here? The question hits me like a physical blow. No, my daughter-in-law. She said it was necessary, that I couldn't take care of myself anymore. And do you believe that's true? I was taking care of myself just fine until 3 days ago. The words come out stronger than I intended, fueled by a week's worth of suppressed anger. I cook, I clean, I manage my finances. I drive. There's nothing wrong with me except that I was worried about my son. Morrison nods, making notes on a small pad. Your son Peter is in the hospital following a car accident, correct? Yes. He's been in a coma for almost a month now. How do you know about that? Mrs. Henderson, I'm going to share something with you that might be difficult to hear. Morrison sets down his pen and meets my eyes. Your son woke up from his coma yesterday morning. The world tilts sideways. I grip the arms of my chair to keep from falling over. What? That's impossible. Brielle would have told me. She would have... Your son has been asking for you constantly since he regained consciousness. The hospital staff tells me he's been increasingly agitated because no one will tell him where you are. But Brielle said. My voice trails off as the implications hit me. She lied. She's been lying this whole time. I'm afraid it gets worse. Morrison pulls out a folder from a briefcase I hadn't noticed him carrying. Mrs. Henderson, do you remember signing any papers regarding your living arrangements? Brielle showed me something. She said Peter had signed papers before his accident, that he was worried about me living alone. But I never signed anything myself. Morrison slides a document across the table. This is a copy of the admission paperwork for this facility. There's a signature here that's supposed to be yours, giving consent for your placement here. I stare at the paper, at the signature that looks nothing like my handwriting. The letters are too large. The slant is wrong, and I always dot my I's with little circles, a habit I've had since I was a teenager. This signature has regular dots. This isn't my signature, I whisper. No, it's not. And the signature claiming to be your son's is also forged. I had a handwriting expert examine both, along with samples from your medical records and Peter's employment files. The room is spinning now. I feel sick. Betrayed in a way I didn't know was possible. Why? Why would Brielle do this? Morrison hesitates, and I can see he's debating how much to tell me. Mrs. Henderson, when was the last time you checked your bank accounts? Brielle has been handling my finances while I'm here. She said it would be one less thing for me to worry about. Even as I say the words, I realize how naive they sound. I think you should know that your house was listed for sale yesterday morning. The asking price is $299,000. I stop breathing. She can't sell my house. It's not hers to sell. Actually, it appears she's obtained power of attorney over your affairs. Another forged document, I'm afraid. The betrayal cuts so deep I can barely speak. My house, the home I shared with Robert, where I raised Peter, where every room holds memories of the life we built together, is being sold out from under me while I sit in this place like a discarded piece of furniture. There's more, Morrison continues, his voice gentle but relentless. The $15,000 from your furniture sale? It never went toward medical bills. Your son's insurance has covered everything related to his treatment. The money went into an account that only your daughter-in-law has access to. I think about the dining room set where Peter took his first steps, holding on to the table legs while Robert and I cheered him on. The bedroom furniture where I held my husband's hand as he took his last breath. All of it reduced to cash in Brielle's pocket. I don't understand, I say, though part of me is beginning to understand all too well. If Peter is awake, if he's looking for me, why hasn't he come here? Because your daughter-in-law told him you chose to move to an assisted living facility. She said you felt overwhelmed caring for yourself and wanted professional help. She made it sound like your decision. The complete picture of Brielle's deception is becoming clear, and it takes my breath away. She's isolated me from Peter while he was unconscious, then lied to both of us to keep us apart. She's stolen my money, forged legal documents, and is selling my home while I sit in this awful place believing I have nowhere else to go. How do you know all this? I ask. Why are you investigating Brielle specifically? Morrison is quiet for a long moment. Then he reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out something that makes my heart stop. It's my blue scarf, the one I gave to the veteran on the bus bench. Mrs. Henderson, I need to come clean about something else. That man you met outside, the veteran you gave your scarf to, that was me. I stare at him, trying to reconcile this well-dressed, authoritative man with the shabby figure who'd been sitting on the bus bench for days. I don't understand. I've been watching this place for 3 weeks, documenting the comings and goings, the treatment of residents, the condition of the facility. I was undercover, trying to gather evidence, when you offered me your scarf. He pauses, and for the first time since he introduced himself, his professional composure cracks slightly. When you offered kindness to someone you thought was a homeless veteran, someone most people would walk past without a second glance, I knew you were exactly the kind of person this investigation was meant to protect. So everything you told me the other night was true. Your son is going to have questions when he finds out where you really are, and everything is going to change soon. Morrison stands up, tucking the folder back into his briefcase. Mrs. Henderson, I need to ask you something important. If I could arrange for you to see your son, would you want that? More than anything in the world. And if I told you that we could stop your house from being sold, get your money back, and hold the people responsible for what happened to you accountable, would you be willing to help me make that happen? For the first time in a week, I feel something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. Not the false hope Betrayal dangled in front of me with promises of maybe later, but real hope backed by action and evidence. What would I need to do? Morrison's smile is warm and reassuring. Just be yourself, Mrs. Henderson. Tell the truth. And trust that there are still people in this world who believe that what happened to you is wrong. As he prepares to leave, I have one more question. How did you know my name that first night? I never told you who I was. I'd been studying the admission records for this place. Your case stood out because of how quickly you were processed and how unusual it was for someone to be admitted without any prior medical evaluation or family consultation. When I saw you sitting on those steps, looking so lost and confused, I suspected you might be Marcia Henderson. And the scarf convinced you? The scarf told me everything I needed to know about your character. Morrison moves toward the door, then turns back. Mrs. Henderson, I want you to know that what you did that night, offering comfort to a stranger when you had every reason to focus only on your own problems, that act of kindness is what gave me the motivation to accelerate this investigation. You reminded me that there are people worth fighting for. After he leaves, I sit alone in the gray room for a long time, processing everything I've learned. Peter is awake. Peter is looking for me. Betrayal has been lying to both of us, stealing from me, destroying my life piece by piece while I sat here believing I was a burden too heavy for my own family to bear. But now I know the truth, and Morrison is right. Everything is about to change. As I make my way back to my room, I pass Dorothy in the hallway. She takes one look at my face and grabs my arm. Something's happened, she says. It's not a question. My son is awake, I tell her, and he's been looking for me. Dorothy's eyes light up with something fierce and satisfied. I told you to keep fighting. Now what are you going to do about it? For the first time since this nightmare began, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my life back, and I'm going to make sure Betrayal understands that she picked the wrong woman to destroy. I don't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I close my eyes, I see Peter in his hospital bed, confused and afraid, asking nurses where his mother has gone while Betrayal feeds him lies about my choice to abandon him. By 6 a.m, I'm dressed and waiting by my window, watching the parking lot for any sign of Morrison's return. The bus bench sits empty under the gray dawn light, and I find myself missing the mysterious veteran who turned out to be my unlikely savior. Breakfast passes in a blur. Dorothy keeps shooting me meaningful looks across the dining room, but I can't bring myself to eat or make conversation. All I can think about is Peter, awake and alone, believing his mother chose to leave him when he needed her most. At 9:30, Jessica appears at my table again. Mrs. Henderson, you have another visitor. My heart pounds as I follow her down the hallway, hoping against hope that somehow Morrison has managed to bring Peter here. But when I enter the family meeting room, it's Brielle sitting at the table, looking perfectly put together in a cream-colored suit that probably costs more than my monthly pension. "Hello, Marcia." Her smile is as fake as everything else about her. "I thought I'd stop by to see how you're settling in." I take the chair across from her, studying her face with new eyes. How had I never noticed the coldness behind her practiced expressions? How had I missed the calculating way she measures every word before speaking? "I'm fine," I say carefully, remembering Morrison's advice to just be myself and tell the truth. "How's Peter?" Something flickers across her face. Guilt, maybe, or annoyance at being reminded of her lies. Still the same. "The doctors say it could be weeks before there's any change." The casual way she lies to my face makes my stomach turn. Peter has been awake for 2 days, asking for me, and she's sitting here telling me he's still unconscious like it's the most natural thing in the world. "I was hoping to visit him today," I say, watching her reaction. "Oh, Marcia, I don't think that's a good idea. The ICU has very strict rules about visitors, and with your condition, it might be too stressful for you." "My condition?" "Your confusion, your memory problems. The doctors here mentioned that you've been having some episodes." Brielle's voice is patient, condescending. "Yesterday you told one of the aides that a stranger was investigating this place. You said he was sitting outside watching the building." I keep my expression neutral, though my pulse quickens. How does she know about Morrison? Has someone at Sunset Manor been reporting back to her? "I did see someone outside," I say truthfully. "He was sitting on the bus bench." "Marcia, there's no bus stop near this building. The closest one is 6 blocks away." Brielle leans forward, her voice taking on the tone you'd use with a confused child. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're seeing things that aren't there, making up stories about investigations and strangers. It's all part of the progression." "Progression of what?" "Your dementia, sweetheart. It's getting worse." The word hits me like a slap. I don't have dementia. No doctor has ever diagnosed me with anything like that. Well, no, not officially, but the signs are all there. The confusion, the paranoia, the memory lapses. Dr. Martinez here at the facility has been documenting your symptoms. I think about Dr. Martinez, a tired-looking man who spent exactly 5 minutes examining me when I arrived, asking basic questions about my name and the date while barely looking up from his clipboard. He never ran any cognitive tests, never asked about my medical history, never did anything that resembled a proper neurological evaluation. "I'd like to see these documented symptoms," I say. "Oh, Marcia, you don't need to worry about medical paperwork. That's what family is for." Brielle reaches across the table and pats my hand in a gesture that's meant to look caring, but feels patronizing. "I'm handling all of that for you. Just like she's handling my finances. Just like she handled the sale of my furniture and the listing of my house." The pattern is becoming crystal clear. Isolate me, label me as incompetent, and take control of everything I own while keeping me too confused and powerless to fight back. "Speaking of handling things," I say, testing the waters, "how are the expenses working out? You mentioned that Peter's medical bills were mounting up." Brielle's expression doesn't change, but I catch a slight tensing around her eyes. "It's been challenging. The insurance doesn't cover everything, and some of the specialists require payment up front. That's why selling your furniture was so helpful." $15,000 seems like a lot for old furniture. "Well, some of those pieces were antiques, more valuable than they looked." She checks her watch, a Rolex that I'm suddenly certain wasn't purchased with her part-time job income. "I should probably get going. I want to stop by the hospital before visiting hours end." "Give Peter my love," I say, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. "Of course." Brielle stands, smoothing her skirt. "Oh, I almost forgot. I brought you something." She pulls a small bottle from her purse and sets it on the table. It's a prescription bottle with my name on it, filled with small white pills. Dr. Martinez prescribed these to help with your anxiety and confusion. The nurse will make sure you take them with your evening meal. I pick up the bottle and read the label. Haloperidol, a powerful antipsychotic medication often used to sedate agitated patients. The dosage is high, much higher than would typically be prescribed for someone my age without serious psychiatric symptoms. I don't feel anxious or confused, I tell her. That's part of the illness, Marcia. People with dementia often don't realize they're having problems. That's why it's important to trust the medical professionals. Brielle gathers her purse, preparing to leave. I'll check on you again in a few days. After she's gone, I sit alone with the pill bottle in my hands, understanding finally hitting me with devastating clarity. This isn't just about money or control. Brielle is systematically destroying my mind, using medication to create the very symptoms she claims I already have. If she can make me genuinely confused and incoherent, her story about my mental decline becomes self-fulfilling. I slip the pills into my pocket. There's no way I'm taking medication prescribed by a doctor who spent 5 minutes evaluating me, especially not at the request of someone who's already proven she'll lie about anything to get what she wants. That afternoon, during outdoor time, I sit on the bench where I first met Morrison and wait. I don't have his phone number or any way to contact him, but somehow I know he'll come back. Men like him don't start investigations they don't intend to finish. I don't have to wait long. At 3:15, I see him walking across the parking lot, once again dressed as the shabby veteran, complete with military jacket and worn boots. But now that I know who he really is, I can see the authority in his bearing, the way his eyes constantly scan the environment, cataloging details. Mrs. Henderson. He sits down beside me, keeping his voice low. How are you holding up? Brielle came to see me this morning. She brought me these. I show him the pill bottle. Morrison takes it, studying the label with a deepening frown. Haloperidol. High dosage. This could knock out someone half your age, let alone a woman in her 70s. She said Dr. Martinez prescribed it for my anxiety and confusion. Dr. Martinez lost his license to practice medicine in 2 other states before coming here. He's not qualified to prescribe aspirin, let alone powerful psychiatric medications. Morrison hands the bottle back to me. Don't take these, Mrs. Henderson, not even one. She also told me that Peter is still unconscious. She's planning to visit him this afternoon. Actually, she's not going to the hospital. We've been monitoring her movements since yesterday. She's been telling Peter that you're too upset to see him right now, that you need time to adjust to your new living situation before you're ready for visitors. The cruelty of it takes my breath away. So he thinks I'm rejecting him. Not for much longer. Morrison's voice is grim but determined. Mrs. Henderson, I need to tell you what we've discovered in the past 24 hours. It's going to be difficult to hear, but you deserve to know the full scope of what you're dealing with. I brace myself, though I'm not sure anything could shock me more than what I already know. Your daughter-in-law has been planning this for at least 6 months. We found evidence that she was researching power of attorney laws and elder care facilities long before Peter's accident. She also took out a $200,000 life insurance policy on your son 3 months ago. The implication hits me like ice water. You think she caused Peter's accident? We're investigating that possibility. The crash happened on a road Peter travels every day to work, at a time when traffic should have been light. A witness reported seeing a vehicle that matched your daughter-in-law's car in the area, but she claimed she was at work that day. My hands start shaking. The woman I trusted with my son, the woman I welcomed into our family, may have tried to kill him for insurance money. And when he survived, she pivoted to a different plan, one that involved destroying me to get access to whatever assets she could claim. There's more, Morrison continues. We've traced your stolen $15,000. It went toward the down payment on a new car for your daughter-in-law. We also found evidence that she's been forging your signature on checks for months, taking small amounts that you might not have noticed. The violations just keep piling up. Every aspect of my life that I thought was safe has been compromised. Every trust betrayed. What about my house? Still listed for sale, but we've put a legal hold on the transaction pending our investigation. The real estate agent was very cooperative once she understood that the power of attorney documents were forged. Can I see Peter? I need him to know that I didn't abandon him. Morrison is quiet for a moment, then nods. Tomorrow morning. I'll arrange it so that your daughter-in-law won't be there. But, Mrs. Henderson, I need you to be prepared for the fact that Peter has been manipulated just as thoroughly as you have. He may not immediately believe that his wife has been lying to him. I understand, but I need him to hear the truth from me. There's one more thing. Morrison reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small digital recorder. I need you to get your daughter-in-law talking about what she's done. If she brings up your medication, your mental state, anything about your living arrangements or finances, I need you to keep her talking and record the conversation. You want me to trick her into confessing? I want you to give her enough rope to hang herself with. People like your daughter-in-law are overconfident. They believe their own lies so completely that they'll often reveal more than they intend to when they think they're in complete control. I take the recorder, surprised by how light it is. Such a small device to bring down such an elaborate deception. Mrs. Henderson, I want you to know that what your daughter-in-law has done to you is criminal. Document forgery, financial elder abuse, false imprisonment, fraud. She's committed at least 6 felonies. By the time we're finished, she'll be facing serious jail time. As Morrison prepares to leave, I have one last question that's been nagging at me. Why? I ask. Why are you doing all this? I know you said it started as an investigation into this place, but it's become so much more than that. Why do you care so much about what happens to me? Morrison is quiet for a long moment, staring out at the parking lot. When he speaks, his voice is softer than I've heard it before. Because 15 years ago, someone did something very similar to my mother. By the time I found out what was happening, it was too late. She died in a place like this, believing that her family had abandoned her. He turns to look at me, and I can see old pain in his eyes. I couldn't save her, but maybe I can save you. That night, I lie in my narrow bed holding the digital recorder, thinking about tomorrow's reunion with Peter. I wonder if he'll forgive me for the confusion Brielle has caused, if he'll believe me when I tell him the truth about what his wife has done. But mostly, I think about Morrison's mother, dying alone in a place like Sunset Manor, and I understand that this fight isn't just about me anymore. It's about every elderly person who's been discarded, manipulated, and abused by people who were supposed to love them. Tomorrow, I get my son back, and soon, Brielle is going to discover that she underestimated the wrong woman. Saturday morning arrives with the promise of seeing Peter again, but it also brings something unexpected. 10 police cars surrounding Sunset Manor. I'm sitting by my window at 7:30, sipping the awful coffee they serve here, when the first patrol car pulls into the parking lot. Then another. Then another. Within 15 minutes, the entire facility is surrounded by law enforcement vehicles, their red and blue lights casting strange shadows across the gray building. Dorothy appears in my doorway, her eyes bright with excitement. Marcia, you need to see this. They're arresting people downstairs. I follow her to the common room, where other residents have gathered at the windows to watch the commotion outside. Through the glass, I can see uniformed officers escorting people from the building in handcuffs. Dr. Martinez is among them, his usually confident demeanor replaced by panic as he's led to a police car. "What's happening?" asks Mrs. Chen, the woman whose daughter never visits. Before anyone can answer, Morrison appears in the doorway of the common room. But this isn't the shabby veteran or the quietly dressed investigator I've come to know. This is Colonel James Morrison in full military dress uniform, his chest decorated with ribbons and medals that speak of a distinguished career. His presence commands immediate attention from everyone in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, he announces, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. My name is Colonel James Morrison, United States Army Criminal Investigation Command, retired. This facility has been under federal investigation for violations of elder care regulations, financial fraud, and abuse of residents. A murmur runs through the gathered residents. Some look confused, others frightened, but I see relief on several faces. The relief of people who've been mistreated finally seeing justice arrive. Morrison's eyes find mine across the room. Mrs. Marcia Henderson, would you please come with me? I follow him out of the common room, past confused staff members and bewildered residents, down the hallway to where a woman in a business suit is waiting. She's tall and professional-looking, with graying hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind but serious eyes. Mrs. Henderson, this is Agent Sarah Collins from the FBI's Elder Justice Initiative. She'll be handling your case specifically. Agent Collins extends her hand. Mrs. Henderson, I want you to know that what happened to you was a serious federal crime, and we're going to make sure the people responsible are held accountable. Does this mean I can leave here? More than that, Morrison says, and for the first time since I've known him, he's smiling. It means you're going to see your son. The ride to the hospital passes in a blur of emotions. Agent Collins sits beside me in the back of Morrison's car, explaining what they've discovered and what comes next, but I can barely concentrate on her words. All I can think about is Peter, awake and confused, believing his mother chose to abandon him. Mrs. Henderson, Agent Collins says gently, your son has been told that his wife has been arrested. We thought it was better that he hear it from us before you arrived, so he'd understand why you haven't been able to see him. My heart clenches. How did he take it? He was shocked, of course, angry, but mostly he was desperate to see you and apologize for not knowing what was happening. The hospital looks different this time, not like a place of sickness and sorrow, but like a place where healing can begin. Morrison and Agent Collins escort me through the corridors, past the ICU where Peter spent his unconscious weeks, to a regular room on the 3rd floor. And there he is. My son, sitting up in bed, his left arm in a cast and a bandage across his forehead, but alert and very much awake. The moment he sees me, his face crumples with emotion. Mom. His voice breaks on the word. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't know. I rush to his bedside, and he wraps his good arm around me, holding me tight like he used to when he was little and afraid of thunderstorms. We both cry, deep, relieving sobs that wash away weeks of pain and confusion and betrayal. I thought you didn't want to see me, I whisper against his shoulder. She told me you'd signed papers to put me away. I never signed anything. I would never do that to you. Peter pulls back to look at me, his eyes red with tears and anger. The police showed me the documents. That's not my signature, Mom. I don't understand how she thought she could get away with this. She almost did. I touch his face, needing to convince myself that he's real, that this moment is happening. If it weren't for Colonel Morrison, she would have. Peter looks over my shoulder to where Morrison is standing quietly near the door. Sir, I can never repay you for what you've done for my family. Morrison steps forward, his expression serious. You don't need to repay me, son. But I do need you to understand what your wife was planning. This wasn't just about money or control. We have evidence that she may have been responsible for your accident. Peter's face goes white. What are you saying? Agent Collins moves closer to the bed. We found evidence that your wife was in the area when your accident occurred, despite her claims that she was at work. We're also investigating the timing of a large life insurance policy she took out on you 3 months ago. I watch my son process this information, see the moment when understanding dawns and horror follows. The woman he married, the woman he trusted, may have tried to kill him for insurance money. And when that failed, she turned her attention to destroying me instead. She told me you were settling into the assisted living place, Peter says, his voice hollow with shock. She said you'd decided you needed more help than you could get at home. I believed her because—" He stops, swallowing hard. "Because it's what I wanted to believe. It was easier than thinking about how scared and confused you must have been. Peter, you were in a coma. There was nothing you could have done. But I should have made arrangements before the accident. I should have had legal documents in place, should have made sure you were protected if something happened to me. Instead, I left you vulnerable to someone I thought I could trust." Agent Collins pulls out a chair and sits down beside the bed. "Mr. Henderson, your mother has shown remarkable courage throughout this ordeal. She gathered evidence that was crucial to our investigation, including this." She produces the digital recorder Morrison gave me, along with my phone. "Your wife made some very incriminating statements during her last visit, including detailed knowledge of forged documents and unauthorized financial transactions. Your mother recorded everything. I think back to yesterday's conversation with Brielle, how I'd managed to keep the recorder running in my pocket while she casually discussed my symptoms and the medication she wanted me to take. At the time, I'd been focused on gathering evidence, but now I realize what a risk I'd taken if she'd discovered what I was doing." "What happens to her now?" Peter asks. "She's been charged with elder abuse, financial fraud, forgery, false imprisonment, and attempted murder," Agent Collins says matter-of-factly. "She'll be held without bail while we continue our investigation. Given the evidence we have, she's looking at 15 to 20 years in federal prison." The room falls silent as we all absorb the magnitude of Brielle's crimes and their consequences. This woman who sat at our dinner table, who kissed my son goodnight, who called me sweetheart while systematically destroying my life, she's going to prison for a very long time. "What about Mom's house?" Peter asks. "Her money? The house sale has been stopped, and we're working to reverse all unauthorized financial transactions," Morrison explains. "Your mother's savings account has been frozen to prevent any further theft, and we expect to recover most, if not all, of the stolen funds." "And the furniture she sold?" Agent Collins consults her notes. "We've located the buyers and explained the situation. Most of the pieces are being returned voluntarily. For those that can't be recovered, your wife's assets will be liquidated to provide compensation." I think about my dining room table, the bedroom set Robert and I chose together for our first apartment. Some things can be replaced, but others carry memories that no amount of money can restore. Still, knowing that Brielle will face consequences for her actions provides a satisfaction that goes deeper than material possessions. "Mrs. Henderson," Morrison says, "I have something that belongs to you." He reaches into his jacket and pulls out my blue scarf, the one I gave him that first night when I thought he was just a homeless veteran in need of kindness. It's been cleaned and carefully folded, and when he places it in my hands, I can smell the faint scent of the fabric softener I used to use at home. "Thank you for trusting a stranger," he says quietly. "Your kindness that night reminded me why this work matters." Over the next hour, we make plans for my immediate future. I can't go back to Sunset Manor. Not that I'd want to, now that it's been shut down and its administrators arrested. Peter's injuries will keep him in the hospital for at least another week, and then he'll need time to recover at home. "You'll stay with me, of course," Peter says. "We have a lot of lost time to make up for." But Morrison has a different suggestion. "Mrs. Henderson, if you're interested, I have a proposition for you." He explains that he and his wife live on a small ranch outside the city where they care for his elderly mother-in-law. Sarah, my wife, not Agent Collins, has been looking for someone to help with her mother's care. Someone with experience, patience, and genuine kindness. The position comes with a private apartment, full benefits, and a salary of $2,000 a month. The offer surprises me. After everything that's happened, the idea of caring for someone else's elderly parent feels like both a blessing and a responsibility I'm not sure I'm ready for. "You don't have to decide now," Morrison continues, "but I want you to know that the job is yours if you want it." Sarah specifically requested that I ask you after I told her about your situation. As the afternoon wears on, more pieces of my old life fall back into place. Agent Collins shows me photos of my recovered furniture, explains the timeline for getting my house back on the market under my own control, and walks me through the legal process that will unfold over the coming months. But the moment that matters most comes when visiting hours are nearly over, and it's just Peter and me alone in the room. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Of course. Did you ever doubt that I loved you? During all of this, when she was lying to both of us, did you think I had abandoned you? The question breaks my heart because I can see how much he needs the answer to be no. But I've learned the importance of truth, even when it hurts. For a little while, yes. I thought maybe she'd convinced you that I was too much trouble, too much of a burden. I take his hand. But Peter, even when I believed that, I never stopped loving you. And deep down, I never stopped hoping that somehow you still loved me too. Tears stream down his face. I will never let anyone hurt you again. I promise you that. You don't need to protect me from the world, sweetheart. You just need to be my son. That's all I've ever wanted. As Morrison drives me back to collect my few belongings from Sunset Manor, I see police tape across the entrance and investigators still working inside. The place that was supposed to be my final home, the place where I was supposed to fade away forgotten and drugged into submission, is now a crime scene. How long will the investigation take? I ask. The criminal cases could take months to fully resolve, Morrison replies. But the important thing is that it's over for you. You're free. Free. Such a simple word, but it carries the weight of everything I've regained: my dignity, my independence, my relationship with my son, and most importantly, my future. Tomorrow, I'll start to rebuild my life. I'll consider Morrison's job offer, work with Peter to restore our home, and begin to heal from the trauma of these past weeks. But tonight, for the first time in what feels like forever, I'll sleep knowing that I'm exactly where I belong, in control of my own destiny. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the front porch of Morrison Ranch, watching the sun set over rolling hills that stretch as far as the eye can see. The air smells like wildflowers and fresh hay instead of disinfectant and despair. In my lap, I hold a letter that arrived this morning, the final piece of a puzzle I never thought would be completed. Marcia, dinner's ready, Sarah Morrison calls from the kitchen. She's a warm, energetic woman in her early 60s with silver hair and the kind of laugh that makes you want to join in even when you don't know what's funny. When I first met her, I was surprised by how quickly she welcomed me into their home, how naturally she included me in their family routines. Coming, I call back, but I take another moment to reread the letter. It's from Agent Collins, updating me on the final resolution of Brielle's case. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Brielle's defense team tried to argue that she was overwhelmed by Peter's medical needs and made poor decisions out of desperation, but the evidence was overwhelming. The forged documents, the recorded conversations, the deliberate medication meant to sedate me into compliance. It painted a clear picture of calculated abuse. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before finding her guilty on all counts. Yesterday, she was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole for 15 years. I fold the letter and slip it into my apron pocket. Justice has been served, but the real victory isn't Brielle's punishment. It's the life I've built since that terrible night when I sat on concrete steps, believing my family had abandoned me. Inside the house, I find Sarah helping her mother, Elena, navigate her dinner with patient hands. Elena is 86 years old, with advanced dementia that comes and goes like weather patterns. Some days she knows exactly who I am and regales me with stories from her youth in Mexico. Other days, she thinks I'm her sister or daughter, or a stranger who's wandered into her house. Elena's having a good day, Sarah tells me quietly. She's been asking about you all afternoon. I sit down beside Elena and take her hand. How are you feeling tonight, dear? Much better since you came to stay with us, Elena says with a smile that's still radiant despite her confusion. You remind me of my mother. She had your gentle hands. This is what Morrison offered me, not just a job, but a purpose. Caring for Elena has given me back something Brielle tried to steal, the knowledge that I'm needed, that my experience and compassion have value. The work isn't always easy. There are difficult days when Elena becomes frightened and doesn't recognize any of us. When she tries to leave the house to find her long-dead husband, when the disease robs her of dignity in ways that break my heart. But there are also moments of unexpected joy, when she remembers a song from her childhood and sings it in Spanish while I brush her hair, when she looks at me with perfect clarity and says, "Thank you for taking such good care of me." After dinner, Morrison and I sit on the porch while Sarah helps Elena get ready for bed. This has become our evening routine, a quiet time to talk about the day, to share stories, to simply enjoy the peace we've both earned. How was Peter's visit last weekend? Morrison asks, settling into his rocking chair with a cup of coffee. Wonderful. He's doing so much better. I smile, thinking about my son's progress over these past months. His physical therapy is going well, and he's seeing a counselor to help him process everything that happened. He asked me again about moving back home with him. And what did you tell him? The same thing I always tell him, that I love him, but I'm exactly where I need to be right now. It's true. When Morrison first offered me this position, I thought it might be temporary, a way station while I figured out my next steps. But living here has become more than just a job. It's become a new chapter in my life that I never expected, but desperately needed. Peter struggled with my decision at first. I think part of him wanted me to move back into my old house, to pretend that none of the trauma had ever happened. But I couldn't do that. Too much had changed, and I'd discovered that I didn't want to go backward. I wanted to move forward into something new and meaningful. He's still having trouble forgiving himself, I tell Morrison. He thinks he should have seen what Brielle was doing, should have protected me better. Guilt is a heavy burden to carry, Morrison says quietly. I should know. Over these months, Morrison has told me more about his own mother's story. How she was manipulated by a caregiver who isolated her from her family, convinced her that her son didn't want to see her anymore. By the time Morrison discovered what was happening, his mother had died alone and afraid, believing her family had abandoned her. But you've turned that pain into something powerful, I remind him. How many elderly people have you helped since then? How many families have you saved from going through what we went through? Morrison nods, but I can see the old sadness still there in his eyes. Some wounds never completely heal, but they can be transformed into something that helps others. Sarah joins us on the porch, sinking into the swing with a tired sigh. Elena's all settled in. She wants Marcia to read to her tomorrow night instead of me. I think you're officially her favorite person. We laugh. But the truth is that Elena's affection has been a healing balm for my own wounded spirit. For weeks after leaving Sunset Manor, I struggled with doubts about my own worth, my own capabilities. Brielle's constant suggestions that I was failing, that I couldn't take care of myself, had planted seeds of insecurity that took time to uproot. But caring for Elena, seeing how much comfort my presence brings her, has restored my confidence in my own abilities. I'm not a burden or a problem to be solved. I'm a woman with skills, experience, and love to offer. I got a call from Dorothy today, I tell them. Dorothy, my friend from Sunset Manor, has become a regular correspondent. She's doing well at her new facility. It's a legitimate place this time. Clean, well-staffed, with actual medical care instead of warehousing. And her grandson? Still trying to repair their relationship. Dorothy says she's making him work for her forgiveness, and I don't blame her. The investigation into Sunset Manor revealed a network of abuse and neglect that affected dozens of elderly residents. Some, like Dorothy, were placed there by family members who were more interested in accessing their assets than ensuring their care. Others were simply forgotten by families who found it easier to pay monthly fees than deal with the inconvenience of aging relatives. All of the residents were relocated to proper care facilities, and several families faced criminal charges for financial exploitation. The building itself was demolished last month, replaced by a small park with a memorial bench dedicated to the dignity of all elderly Americans. As the stars begin to appear in the clear country sky, Sarah stands up and stretches. "I'm going to check on Elena one more time, then head to bed. Early morning tomorrow. We're taking her to see her great-grandchildren." After Sarah goes inside, Morrison and I sit in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the ranch settling into sleep. Horses moving quietly in the pasture, the distant call of a night bird, the soft whisper of wind through the trees. "Marcia, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you ever regret giving me that scarf? If you hadn't shown kindness to a stranger that night, none of this investigation would have happened. Your life might have been simpler." The question surprises me, but the answer comes immediately and without doubt. Never. Not for a single second. Even though it led to so much pain and upheaval? Morrison, that pain and upheaval led to the truth, and the truth set me free. I adjust the blue scarf around my shoulders. Morrison returned it to me when I moved to the ranch, and I wear it often now as a reminder of that pivotal moment when a simple act of kindness changed everything. "Besides," I continue, "that night on the steps when I gave you this scarf, I wasn't thinking about consequences or investigations. I was just doing what felt right, offering comfort to someone who needed it. If I'd walked past you that night, if I'd kept my scarf and my distance, I would have lost something important about myself." "What's that?" "My belief that kindness matters. Brielle tried to convince me that I was worthless, that my life had no value, that I was a burden everyone would be better off without. But when I saw you sitting there cold and alone, my instinct was still to help. That told me that she hadn't broken the essential part of who I am." Morrison reaches over and pats my hand. "You saved me that night too, you know. I'd been investigating elder abuse cases for years, but I was getting burned out, starting to think that maybe there was too much cruelty in the world to make a real difference. Your kindness reminded me that there are still good people worth fighting for." We sit quietly for a while longer, each lost in our own thoughts about the strange journey that brought us together. Then Morrison stands up, checking his watch. "I should let you get some rest. Elena will want her morning walk early tomorrow, and I know she prefers your company to mine." As I prepare for bed in my comfortable apartment, a space that's truly mine, decorated with my recovered furniture and filled with my own belongings, I think about the different versions of myself I've been over these past months. There was Marcia, the victim, sitting on those concrete steps believing she had no value. There was Marcia, the fighter, secretly recording conversations and gathering evidence while pretending to be the confused old woman everyone expected. And now there's Marcia, the survivor, building a new life based on her own choices and values. I brush my teeth at my own sink, sleep in my own bed, and wake up each morning knowing that the day ahead is mine to shape. These simple freedoms feel precious because I know how easily they can be stolen. On my nightstand sits a framed photo from Peter's wedding to his new girlfriend, Rebecca, a nurse he met during his recovery, who sees him clearly and loves him honestly. I was the one who walked him down the aisle since his father isn't alive to do it, and I was the one who gave the toast about second chances and the importance of choosing love over fear. Brielle was wrong about so many things, but she was especially wrong about this. My life isn't over just because I'm 71 years old. If anything, I'm more alive now than I've been in years. I have meaningful work, people who value my contributions, and the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing I survived something terrible and came out stronger on the other side. Tomorrow, I'll help Elena tend to her flower garden, read her favorite book of poetry, and listen to her stories about the ranch where she raised her children. I'll call Peter and Dorothy and the other people who matter to me. I'll live fully in the present while honoring the past that made me who I am. And sometimes, when I'm sitting on this porch in the evening, I'll unwrap my blue scarf and remember the night when a simple act of kindness changed everything. Because that's what kindness does. It ripples outward in ways we can never predict, touching lives and creating connections that can survive even the worst betrayals. I'm Marcia Henderson. I'm 71 years old. I'm exactly where I belong, and I'm free. Now I'm curious about you who listened to my story. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever been through something similar? Comment below, and meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final screen 2 other stories that are channel favorites, and they will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until here.